You wake up, you check your phone, you already know what you're doing today, tomorrow, and probably next Tuesday too. Your whole life runs on a calendar. But the real answer to why you live this way is far stranger than a habit. It goes back 10,000 years to a decision that wasn't really a decision at all, made by people who had no idea they were about to change the species forever. For almost the entire existence of Homo sapiens, nobody planned ahead the way you do. People followed food, they moved with the seasons, they ate what grew, hunted what moved, and slept where it made sense that night. There was no next Tuesday. There was only today, and maybe tomorrow if the weather held. Then something happened. Slowly, in small pockets around the world, people started staying in one place. They started planting seeds instead of just gathering them. And that single shift didn't just change what humans ate. It changed how humans thought, how they related to each other, and even what diseases lived in their bodies. Here's the part almost nobody expects. Farming was not an upgrade. Anthropologist Jared Diamond called agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. That's a strong claim, but the skeletal evidence backs him up. Researchers studying human remains from before and after the shift to farming found something disturbing. Early farmers were shorter than their hunter-gatherer ancestors. Their bones showed more signs of malnutrition. Their teeth had more cavities. Their skeletons showed more repetitive stress injuries, the kind you'd get from grinding grain for hours every single day. Why would people choose something that made them shorter, sicker, and more exhausted? They probably didn't choose it. Not really. Most researchers now believe farming crept up on humanity rather than being invented in a single flash of insight. A group settles near a river because fish are plentiful. They notice wild grains growing nearby. They start managing those grains a little, weeding around them, protecting them. Before long, they need to stay near that patch of land to tend it. The wild grain didn't domesticate itself. In a strange way, it domesticated them. That reframing matters. You've probably heard the story told as humans mastering nature, planting seeds, building civilization. But look closer and the relationship looks more like a trap that tightened gradually, one generation at a time, until nobody could remember what it felt like to simply walk away. Consider wheat. A wild grass, unremarkable, growing across parts of the ancient Middle East. Then humans start feeding it, watering it, clearing rivals away from it. In exchange, the wheat feeds them back, but only if they keep tending it, season after season, forever. Biologist and author Yuval Noah Harari has argued that in evolutionary terms, wheat succeeded far better than humans did. Its genes spread across the planet, riding on human labor, while the humans who carried it became more tied to the land than any hunter-gatherer had ever been to a hunting ground. So why didn't people just walk away and go back to foraging? Population is the answer, and it's a brutally simple one. Farming produces more calories per acre than foraging does. That means more food. More food means more children survive infancy. More children survive infancy. And suddenly, you have more mouths to feed than foraging could ever support. There's no going back once the population has grown past what the old lifestyle could sustain. The trap wasn't just psychological, it was mathematical. And once people settled down, everything else followed. Permanent settlements meant permanent neighbors. Permanent neighbors meant new social pressures nobody had faced before. Hunter-gatherer groups were typically small, mobile, and relatively equal. Farming villages were bigger, static, and increasingly unequal. Grain, unlike a fresh kill, can be stored, and what can be stored can be hoarded. Archaeological evidence from early farming settlements shows the first clear signs of significant wealth differences between households. Some homes had large grain stores, others had almost nothing. Inequality in the modern sense may be a side effect of a storage jar. Farming also changed human bodies in ways that still show up today. Living close to livestock meant living close to animal diseases. Measles, smallpox, and influenza all likely originated as animal illnesses that jumped to humans once people started keeping cows, pigs, and chickens nearby year-round in dense settlements. Epidemiologist Jared Diamond's research on this connection points to a grim irony. The very innovation that let populations grow also created the crowded, unsanitary conditions that let disease spread faster than it ever could in a small mobile band spread thin across open land. Here's the part that connects directly to you. Anthropologists studying skeletal remains have found that early farmers' jaws and teeth changed noticeably compared to their ancestors. Softer, processed grains required less chewing. Jaws grew smaller over generations. Some researchers link this shift to the crowded teeth and impacted wisdom teeth so common today. Your dentist has probably mentioned this. It's not random bad luck. It's an inheritance from 10,000 years of eating differently than your body evolved to expect. Sleep changed too. Hunter-gatherer sleep studies, including research led by sleep scientist Jerome Siegel, observing modern foraging groups in Africa and South America, found that these communities don't sleep in one solid 8-hour block the way farming and industrial societies do. They wake briefly in the night. They nap when tired. Their sleep follows the body's signals, not the clock. Farming introduced the need for a fixed schedule. Crops don't wait. Livestock don't wait. And once agriculture demanded a rhythm, humans adapted their sleep to match the work, not the other way around. So the next time you feel exhausted by your alarm clock, know that you're fighting an ancient battle between your biology and an agricultural schedule invented long after your body finished evolving. There's a psychological cost too, one that's harder to measure but impossible to ignore. Foraging groups typically worked far fewer hours per day than farmers did to get enough food. Anthropologist Marshall Solins famously described hunter-gatherers as the original affluent society, pointing out that many foraging cultures spent as little as 15 to 20 hours a week acquiring food, leaving the rest for rest, socializing, and ritual. Farmers, by contrast, often worked from dawn to dusk, tied to fields that demanded constant attention. The wild grain your ancestors managed did not care if they were tired, and yet farming won. It spread across nearly every continent, replacing foraging almost everywhere it touched. Why would a harder, less healthy, more exhausting way of life outcompete an easier one? Because evolution and history don't reward what's better for you. They reward what reproduces. Farming societies outpopulated foraging societies. More people meant more soldiers, more workers, more expansion. Health and happiness were never the metric being optimized. Numbers were. And once one group in a region adopted farming and grew large enough, its neighbors had two choices: adopt it too, or be outnumbered and displaced. This is the quiet tragedy hiding underneath the story you were taught in school. Farming wasn't civilization's triumphant beginning. It was closer to an irreversible bargain made without anyone fully agreeing to the terms that traded individual well-being for collective growth. Look at your own life through this lens for a moment. Your fixed schedule. Your stored food in a refrigerator, not unlike a granary. Your crowded teeth. Your struggle against a body that wants to sleep in fragments, but a world that demands 8 straight hours before an alarm. All of it traces back to a handful of people 10,000 years ago who noticed some grass growing near a river and decided to help it along. They weren't trying to invent your Tuesday. They were just trying to eat a little easier that season. But the grain they tended ended up domesticating something far more complicated than a plant. It domesticated you. So the next time your alarm goes off and you feel that familiar resistance in your body, remember what you're actually resisting. Not the clock, not the job. Something much older, a decision made in a river valley thousands of years before anyone could have.